Hello everyone. This is Dryden001,
Sniper, be
and
careful.
here we have joining with me, Andre and Garrett.
Hello. Salut.
And this Strat Chat episode is going to be covering communication structure and basically team comp as well. So we're going to be going through a couple team comps. We're going to be going through dive, and we're going to be going through some variant comps with Deathball. And I believe we are going to be covering the 2 lanterns comp.
Oh, we are doing 2 lanterns.
Yeah.
Oh, that will screw some people. All right.
Yeah. Andre, I'm still getting an echo from you, by the way. I just noticed
Crap.
it. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Alright,
man.
moving the speakers even farther away from my microphone.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you, man.
Is
Okay.
that better?
I think so. Yeah, I can still kind of hear it. I think it'll be okay. Okay, so first one to start off with is communication structure. So, Garrett, do you want to cover communication structure of team comps?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about how engagement should happen.
Yeah, so first thing I'm going to point out is whenever you're talking about communication in a group or a structure, you're really talking about management philosophy.
Sniper, be careful.
And all of that is based around how to communicate amongst each other and what's the most efficient way to communicate. And the first really position I'm going to go over is the team captain position. And the important thing to realize here is the team captain position is not like a dictatorship. The team captain is not supposed to like decide everything about what's going on the team. And everybody should be feeding information up and debating what's going on. The team captain is only there to end dispute, basically.
Yeah.
And this really comes into play when you get into target calling and shot calling, because really the most important person on the team that has direct impact is the target caller,
Barrier activated.
because the target caller really dictates how the enemy team has to play, because you put so much pressure on individual targets that they have to react to you engaging. And we'll go through engaging and target calling soon, but that's kind of the difference between the 2 main positions there. You have target caller and then team captain. The team captain deals with things outside of engagement, and the target caller deals with stuff inside the engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of combat, really you have to take your time
Sniper,
and decide how you want to play the game. And I think a lot of people feel pressured by the clock ticking down as the game progresses, but it's really important just to step back and take that time to discuss how to go about the next engagement.
Yeah.
And everybody should be participating in that, because your healer will notice things like, you know, our tanks are taking a lot of damage. That means they're probably building up ults really fast. Or maybe your DPS is dealing a lot of damage and they're getting a lot of offensive ults really fast. So you could plan around these things. Like, we know that they're going to have this ult during our next engagement. We should go this route to avoid getting choked up and that ult being utilized most effectively. So you can plan around how different people are analyzing the game. And that's really important to say. And the team captain is really just there to end those disputes and say, okay, we're definitively going with this idea.
Yeah.
And then in the engagement, you have the target caller saying, okay, this person needs to go down because they're putting the most pressure on us. This person is giving them a lot of value and we need to cancel that value. And really, target calling is an art all of its own, because it's not just like saying, oh, in general, this character or this position has the most value, so we need to target them. There are times when, you know, even though Reinhardt typically is a very bad target to call in the initial engagement, the Reinhardt could be doing a lot of work. They could be putting a lot of pressure on your team, and the target caller has to decide whether or not that is a fair judgment to make on whether to target call.
Yeah.
So, John, do you have anything to add there with target calling?
The only thing I wanted to add is you can call them different names as well, each position. Where you have you can call it as a shot caller, and then you can call the other one a focus caller, mix and match. The other thing is people who aren't filling that position as well, doing call outs where you are saying things that are relevant, like, hey, we're being dived by Tracer, or hey, they have a widow, and stuff like that. That's a very important aspect that a lot of people don't have, and it's usually just because they don't want to say anything, and then suddenly Tracer gets a double kill in the back because no one said that Tracer's in the back and they need help. So that's another thing.
And on that, I think a lot of people put a lot of confidence in like their upper tier management type of structures, like their team captain, and they think, oh well, they're just going to make all the decisions, so there's no need for me to talk. And I think that's a really bad habit to get into, because really the team captain's only there to say, okay, we're going to go with this. They kind of just collect all the ideas that are being thrown out and just have the team focus on one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, really, it's everybody talking. It's everybody putting in all of those ideas. It's not just one person, and everybody should be talking. Everybody should be putting in their input, saying, hey, maybe we should go flanker on the right side. And, maybe there'll be people saying, yeah, I'm not quite sure about that. But in the end, if the team captain makes a decision, yeah, let's go ahead and flank, there should be some sort of confidence in the team captain that he's making, or he or she is making, the right decision. So the ideas should come from everybody.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Okay.
So everybody should be talking.
So I'm gonna go through a typical push with a dive comp, and how target calling and that kind of stuff works. So if you guys can set up as a defense, that'd be great. Tell me when you're ready. So the next part we're going to go through is basically running through how dive comp will initiate and how the communication structure works with that. Now, one thing is, we do know that we're going to be going up against a Diva and a Widowmaker, so I'll walk through of priority and dive targets. We have picked Numbani because Numbani has some interesting dive mechanics and other comp mechanics as well, and so it'll be interesting. You guys ready?
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
So, doors open, team comes out. This is basically where you want to be talking about, prior you want to be talking about what you're going to be running, but this is where you're going to be wanting to kind of figure out where they're at. If they're up there on that edge, then you usually will call that out. You'll have people say, hey, they have Hanzo up top over there, and sometimes you'll see Symmetra Orb or Ananade, and you'll basically just be calling that stuff out. Diva is a good call-out target because they're looking for stuff that they can use Defense Matrix on, and so that's really helpful as well. You'll see Symmetra Orbs go by, and you're like, hey, they have a Symmetra. That's a good call-out as well. You go around here, and the shot caller or captain should be saying, okay, let's go around this right side and dive up top. So you go up here, and the shot caller goes, okay, ready, diving in. Well, the focus caller says, okay, ready, diving in 3, 2, 1.
Sniper, be careful.
They're like, okay,
Protect us.
Widow, and then they'll start attacking onto the Widow. They'll drop down when needed, and then they'll jump back up. Widow, and then the Widow would be down, and we'd be like, I'm low. And they're like, okay, focus Diva, Diva's last. Diva bomb, get out. Back in, okay. Diva used ult, and you start going. The best way to explain how to target calling, if you want to learn how to target calling, is the target caller should be saying whatever they're shooting. So they're like, okay, Diva, Widow. There we go. Widow. There we go. Ulting. And then if you die, and so Garrett, you're going to kill me. And you see that you have a deficit in who is alive, then the captain will say something along the lines of, okay, pull back, regroup.
Onward and upward.
So that's when everyone wants to get out and or die, like I just did, where you're purposely wanting to die so that you don't get trickled. And trickling, if you guys do not know, is basically you have the best chance of winning when you have the same amount of players, offense and defense, or you have more players alive on your side. So you always want to be pushing with a full team. That's why if you get picked, getting shot early, that's why a lot of teams will pull back, because they want to take that engagement basically 1v1 or even higher. That's also why Mercy was really relevant, was because she could just bring those people back. So they'd be like, okay, that didn't work so well, so we're going to go up left.
Right.
And so
I'd just like to say something. So when he pulled back, when the team captain would have said, all right, we're pulling back, that's a micro or a macro scale kind of command over the situation. When you're dealing with each individual player in the engagement, they should be doing whatever they think is best. There should never be micromanaging in that situation. Now, the target caller can call targets, and ultimately everyone should be targeting that person. You should just abandon all other ideas and just target that person, especially in dive. Because that's where dive gets its values, the ability to get those picks.
Yep.
But in general, the team captain will say, we're backing out. You know, you don't want to give them more than you've already given them at that point. That's saying that the fight's lost, we just need to back out and regroup and re-strategize. A very macro observation of the system. Now, also what we do on our team is when John was actually going out there, he was saying, okay, this is where you'd be picking your team comps, and this is where you'd be really saying what you're doing beforehand. Our team has a few people who sit back, analyze the situation, and say, I think this comp should be what we go with. And, you know, not everyone is going to know everything about the game. There are certain people who know more about offense, more people about defense, more about team comps, strategy, stuff like that. And everyone has their own specific, unique set of skills. And we have people on our team just for that beginning section of choosing what we want to do before we start the game.
Yeah.
And again, that's more of a team collaboration, but, you know, the team captain doesn't necessarily lead that conversation. It is someone completely different.
So I think we're going to segue off of main communication. We're going to be going into more in depth with team comps. If you guys have any questions, please put them either in the chat, because we are live streaming this 2 o'clock on Saturday, or ask in the comment section of YouTube. That's another thing as well. I will be happy to answer those questions. We'll answer the chat questions from Twitch at the end of the video. We do have one question that came directly from Discord that we'll be covering. I do want to go over basically dive structure and how dive works. So to start out with, dive is, the idea is that one character can't get all the kills, but all characters get all the kills, and so it uses that idea of focusing a target with a high mobility comp. So you'd be wanting to run Tracer almost always. You can throw in Junkrat if you want to. It's being used a little bit more. Winston Diva, and then you have Zen's being used, Lucio's being used, Mercy's being used, Mora's being used. So really, the only one you don't really want to use for dive would be Ana. And so that's the dive structure there. People use Genji. Genji is being used mainly in the European comps, a couple times in Korea. North America is using more Soldier in place of, because of the consistent damage he brings out and overall damage. along with Farah. They'll switch. If a Farah is being added in, she actually replaces a tank role, and usually Diva. So most of the time she'll never replace a DPS role, mainly because you want that tracer, you want that Genji / soldier. So you'll usually see Farah mainly on Oasis, because Oasis is a good 3 DPS comps. But yeah, mainly with Dive is you want to get into a position where you're able to engage when you want to. And then you just kind of suss out the situation, you figure out what's going on, and then you go, okay, 3, 2, 1, diving, and then you'll go Widow, Widow, Widow. And you'll be calling out Widow, Widow, focus Widow. And then you got that covered, and then you'll move on to Diva. Another good thing to mention as well is if you do get killed, you'll just basically say like what your ult charge is at. That's a good way to explain. Your team loses, you go, okay, what ults do we have? What ults will they have? If they have a Mercy, you can almost guarantee they'll have near ult. Ana is ult, Tracer would have ult, Moira might have ult depending on how long the fight went on. But you can basically also gauge. So if there was 2 Winstons, one on offense, one on defense, and you died about the same time, you can guarantee that you're probably gonna have the same amount of ult charge. So that's a good way to figure that one out as well. Also, if a tank like myself got just shot to bits by Reaper, he will have a lot of ult charge as well, and that's a good way to explain that. Anything else with dive that you guys want to cover? Do you want to cover counter dive?
Yeah,
we talked about it. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but what about who to target call? Who to focus? Because when it comes to diving, a lot of it is who like what character really, like what value do you get off picking off a specific character? Like there's a lot of potential you can mitigate from just getting one character out of the region when you create that 5v6 scenario. So
right.
Contrary to popular belief, you don't necessarily focus the healer first. You focus the one that is the most killable and is the most value for the enemy team. So if you notice, I was diving onto the Widow, and that's because she had the most kill potential. If we kill her immediately, then she doesn't have that potential carried out throughout the engagement. Likewise, if someone was playing a Zenyatta, I would go, okay, well, he had potential of massive amounts of healing, massive amounts of damage, and is easiest to kill. So I'll dive him and not the Diva. Likewise, as well as if they're...
Zenyatta can't really escape either.
No.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. As well, if they're running a Reinhardt, you want to dive over the Reinhardt. If you dive in front of the Reinhardt, you're right in front of the enemy team, and that's a big part of it as well. So you guys want to set up on offense, or do you want to be trying to run a counter dive? Actually, I'll set up on defense. You guys set up on offense, okay? That works. Thanks, Admin Garrett.
No problem.
Oh, you're just restarting the match.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't need to restart the match, but it works.
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about running counter dive.
Imagination is the
Counter
essence of
dive
discovery.
wasn't really that popular back then. It's become a little more popular now. But usually defense is when you would run maybe something else besides dive. But dive on defense on Numbani is actually pretty good because the Winston can jump from side to side. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set up like right here or like right here. And so if you guys go back and go as if you're going to engage. Cool.
So Tracer can't get up on the high ground. So we're going to engage on this high ground. From the low ground, right? From dive.
It's your decision.
Alright,
Well,
we're
since
going
we
to do
have
it.
Tracer, we gotta. I at least had to take high ground first.
You can take the bus.
Okay, so we're ready to get engaged on. You can also have the Winston all the way over here. Speak of the devil. Hi, guys. So yeah, you can have the Winston up here as well and just kind of dive in. I kind of like Winston at this section, mainly because of what you see running in. You'll usually see the Tracer run in this direction, like Andre is doing. Thank you for being the great example. But a lot of the times, you'll see either Winston here, or back there on that ledge. So that's a lot of good places to go. So are you guys in position, or are you guys...
Well, yeah.
Because you need to jump on that high ground. Yeah. You kind of need to jump on that high ground.
You're talking about that high ground over there, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know the one I jumped on?
Oh.
Yeah.
The fuck? Keep falling off. Alright.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead and reset as if you're just attacking. Does it need to explain this from bottom to top? So usually your team, Soldier, Zenyatta, and all those people will be back there in the corner. Mercy as well. You'll have a couple other people there. You might have your team spread out across. I said again, you set up there. So yeah, I've jumped over here, and then I've engaged into here. I'm calling for the Winston because I don't want to be diving the Tracer because she has problems. But now I'm on the point. Yeah. So that's the thing as well, is it's a lot of kill potential from you. And you're like, I'm ulting.
So one thing that's kind of interesting that I've seen a lot of the pros do as far as dealing with dive is it's not even necessarily so much composition based so much as the process of baiting the dive onto a particular hero, that they will put someone who's relatively diveable in a vulnerable spot, but chill more or less behind that hero where it looks like it's an opening, but it actually isn't. Like, for example, behind the hotel on King's Row, a lot of times they'll park a bit of the team back there, then leave someone diveable maybe a little closer out on the point, and then if the team attempts to dive them, then they catch the dive then by actually being behind where all the dive heroes land and still having shield and presence and damage all ready to go right there. So you basically just have them dive short of where the rest of your team is, and then you punish hard.
Yeah, that's why I was standing over there on that side, was because I was taken as if you guys were jumping over there, and then I would dive onto you. So that's a lot with the counter dive. Counter dive is a lot harder to do than regular dive because you need to get the enemy team to dive something that you want them to dive, and then you attack them from there.
Right, you're baiting and reacting while the diving team only has to just make a decision and go for it. So it's a more complicated meta situation.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add before we move on to? Okay.
I mean, dive. You want to do counter dive while we're on dive? I mean, we don't have enough to properly go through what a whole counter dive comp would be, but
yeah. Kind of have to use your imagination. Okay, I'm gonna switch over to Ryan so that we can go over dive comp. If you guys could go dive Lucio, well, Ryan Lucio.
Dive comp?
No,
sure, dive comp
Ryan
is...
Lucio. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. What you said, dive comp there.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I'll go through it this way. I'll switch to Orisa when we're going through what Orisa can do as well.
And what we might do one day is we might just hold a team practice where we can actually have 12 people and go through comps that way.
Yeah.
I think that would be productive.
So, if you're not following along now, look for a future video like that.
So you'll see.
So are we doing Rushdown right here?
No, we're just gonna be going through basic death ball.
Death ball.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So the.
All right. So where do you want us?
Just attack as if we were going to up the stairs.
Wrong way.
Or do you want to
Andre.
do the Cloud9?
I like the
Okay.
Cloud9.
Have you seen it?
Dude. I mean, hold on. So you go up this way, right? You go underneath and you go up this way.
I'll actually walk you through all this stuff real quick. I have to get health because I'm at like 70 health. Okay, so I'll walk you through as if I was offense, okay? So Cloud9, way back in the day, would walk in like this, and the Lucio would speed boost them. They would speed boost all the way through here, and then they would come around this corner, and they would... This is where the comp was good because no one knew if they're going underneath or up top. And they could go all the way up around here. And then they would just engage here. And then they would win. It basically, I think, I don't know if a team actually was able to hold them. Because it's just would... It was well executed, and it took forever, though. So if they were actually able to get it without doing that fancy comp, then it was better. So if you guys would set up as if you were Death Ball attacking, then we'll go through the Lucio variant of Death Ball. That is the one that's really only used.
Through the top.
What?
We're gonna go through the center, right? We're not gonna go through the...
No, you're going through top. You always go through top
Alright.
as a Death Ball. So yeah,
Oh yeah, because you get that long range poke damage. Gotcha.
so usually as Death Ball, you would be running either the Reinhardt in the back or the Reinhardt right here. You have this set up, and then you have this like... I was ulting. Yeah. And so you'll have that engagement. Usually it takes a little longer before the Reinhardt's engaged, but with a Death Ball, the main idea behind it is you need to burn down the 2 shields before. And pretty much the idea is everyone's behind the shield, everyone's grouped up, and everyone's focusing their damage into the shield. And so you usually would see actually the focus caller, which is still in this comp.
I have a way of describing this. Andre, come switch me for Reinhardt.
So yeah, the Death Ball mainly would be we would have the both shields, and we would kind of just be doing this like low engagement and then try to bait the other Reinhardt.
Alright, so stay right there.
Okay.
So this whole middle ground right here would basically be no man's land. You don't want to be in that middle ground. Go ahead and put up your shields. As a soldier behind here, I'd just be trying to break down his shield, and his whole team would be behind him. That's really what this is. We have a portable wall, and we just want to break down the other person's wall and take it. A lot of long-range damage, and I mean, that's really it. You just sit back and shoot each other. Alright, don't kill him. But yeah. Is that a good enough example for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. This is a basic Death Ball. I wouldn't suggest running Death Ball at the current moment, just because there's a lot... variants of Death Ball usually do a lot better. So let's go ahead and switch to the Lucio variant of Death Ball that's usually ran when people think of Death Ball.
So anytime you think Death Ball, imagine you're going to have a soldier just hanging out behind a Reinhardt shield. I mean, that's a pretty safe guess, right?
Again!
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be running the Lucio variant, which pretty much, when you think of Deathball, this is usually what you see, and that's just because it is the superior version of Deathball. Pretty much runs as a Rushdown comp. People will call that a Rushdown comp, and usually you'll use the Lucio speed boost to get the Reinhardt into a position, and then you will, you basically, because you'll want to stay around choke points to defend, but their Lucio is going to want to be rushing them through really fast and get them in the middle of your team, and so that ends up, it's a mix of dive and Deathball, really. So if you guys want to demonstrate that.
Yep, you're on the high ground, right?
Yeah.
So let's assume that he's on the
So I'm going to be
ground.
spamming the choke as if I was my entire team. I technically should be like using my shield for most of it, but yeah. And then now I'm off the high ground because I got booped. And then they're now pushing into me, and I can't really do much. So a lot of it, it's a lot more aggressive.
So while a death ball would maybe generally be more longer range hit scan, a rushdown can sometimes get away with running more close range heroes like Reapers, just because you're shoving yourself into the enemy team's face so hard. The raw DPS of Reapers and Roadhogs, you're now
in a way, it's kind of like the dive of Deathball.
Yeah.
Right, it's the hybrid in between the two.
Yeah. It's a little less mobile, but what you do is you make the team that you're on more mobile. I'm getting some weird like map glitches going on, because
Falling off the cliff.
Well, yeah, I do the spectator thing of spectating my own team, and so it'll default over to me, who's like falling into oblivion.
Anyway, so that's basically the Rushdown. I mean, it's pretty simple. You take a death ball, and you basically use Lucio to just get right up in their face. It's a lot like a dive. I mean, it follows a similar characteristics to a dive in that you want to focus those people who can't get away from the initial engage.
Yeah, you'll still have that focus calling.
Yeah, the difference is the comp revolving around the dive can escape if they need to.
Yeah.
Dive has a lot more mobility to be able to disengage. When you do a rushdown, it's a lot more all or nothing type of engage. All right, so
next one, I believe would be the two-stage comp, and then two-stage comp has kind of died. We'll still cover it. It's pretty fast to cover it.
No, I don't think we can cover the two-stage
with this many people.
Well, I think if I switch you over, we can get the three.
Yeah, if we're all on one team, we can do it. Two-stage comp actually moves into the two lanterns comp.
You know what? We'll do it on offense, just to show the difference between using the Winston and using the Reinhardt.
For what?
Wow, the two lanterns.
Well, yeah. So, I'm gonna go ahead and go with the soldiers so that we can explain that.
We're all soldiers now.
So, I well, because the two lanterns comp did come from the two-stage comp, which usually had the Orisa in the back line, with a Rhine up front, and you would have everyone like soldier and everyone in the back line. And then you would have people in the front line, and it was usually made for Hollywood defense. and basically would entail that you would get the Torbjorn ult faster. Well, you would get the Torbjorn ult, and then when they actually would push past your front line, you'll just ult. And it kind of died out because it just wasn't working. So this is a rendition of it that we call the two lanterns.
Yeah, I just realized I have projectile speed at god amounts, so...
Okay. So if we want to go through it, Garrett, we'll go through it on offense. Let's go through it on defense first, because we are running the Reinhardt, and the Reinhardt's is the switch in for a defensive comp. So usually with this two lanterns comp, what you're going to want to have is either Moira or Mercy in the back line, along with the Orisa and the Soldier, who are going to be very near each other. And for this one, since they can dive on us from above, we're going to want to be positioned on the high ground. So I'm going to move over to the high ground. But it's really based off of the Orisa shield being very mobile. Garrett, over here.
Wrong high ground.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The Orisa shield is going to be like a mobile dive figure. So that's why we can run the Winston on offense with her. But you'll have the Mercy, Soldier, and Orisa here. And the idea is that we both have a lot of good mid to long range damage. We're not built for close range. We have the Mercy or Moira for the healing onto us, or the damage boost from the Mercy / the damage orb from the Moira. We have the front line. Basically, the idea behind this comp is we're running a death ball that can't be dived, and it's because our front line is going to be far enough up that if they dive onto us, then they actually land in between us, and we're like a firing range. So for example, Garrett, if you use your halt ability, here's another, that's Fortify. If you use halt ability towards Andre, real quick, I'll show you one combo that Soldier does really well with Orisa. So go ahead.
Halt ability.
Halt. Yeah. So
Okay.
basically, I would right-click into your halt, and it works pretty well. It's very consistent. The Mercy will be damage boosting us. I believe we could burn down a Reinhardt barrier just ourselves in 4 seconds, and that's what the combo is of the 3 people back here. We would have another healer and another DPS that would be in between, or the DPS can be switched for a Roadhog / Diva or whatever in the front. Andre, I'm trying to think. You can justify running Andre on the low ground, or you can run him up here on the high ground. The only difference is that he wouldn't be protecting anyone on the high ground. That would be to the Orisa. And so the Orisa is going to want to be throwing her shield in random areas. So either up there to help out the Reinhardt, or right in front of us. And so we'll use it, and then she'll switch. Because one of the big counters to Orisa is you get behind the barrier, and you just kill the Orisa. And usually what happens is they'll see where the barrier is, and they'll position themselves so that they can get behind the barrier to kill the Orisa. So if they get behind that barrier, and then Garrett puts the barrier just in front of him, well, now they're still in front of the barrier, and then they just die. So this is a pretty shield-heavy comp. Counters to it would be like a Sombra, technically, but the Sombra can only EMP either the Reinhardt or us, and one side helps the other when something goes on. So if they dive us, the Reinhardt turns around and attacks into us. If they dive the Reinhardt, then we just shoot them. If they land in the middle, same thing.
And going back to our previous video on pressure, with all these shields, you have a lot of pressure mitigated really anywhere you want it mitigated. Because you can move the Reinhardt, you can move the Orisa shield, you can reposition. You basically dictate where the enemy can apply pressure to you.
Another thing to point out is a good counter to the backline that you would think would be a Tracer Pulse Bomb or something along the lines. An interesting fact is if the Tracer comes into Pulse Bomb, she is more likely to hit the Orisa, and the Orisa will fortify, not dying. The soldier can run off, or die, either one. And then the Mercy will run in, res the soldier, and then the soldier will help heal the Orisa, and then the comp's back. It's a pretty simple strategy there. It also helps caters to the newer Mercy, where she has a res time onto her, where it takes time for her to res, because she'll be behind barriers and all that stuff, and behind walls, and so you won't be running into the Mercy jumping into the middle of the fight and trying to res in the middle of everyone. So that's a good
Plus,
thing.
she has the targets to dive between.
Yes.
With her Valkyrie.
Yeah, so she can Valkyrie over to Andre if the back gets targeted, or back up to Garrett and I. This also can do a single support comp as well, if you want to make it as such. It depends on how much health you think you're gonna be being taken from. You can run the Lucio up front or the Moira up front. Either one will work. You can also run a Ana in the back line as well, and do a 4 in the back, 2 in the front. It's very versatile. Any things to add from you guys?
Yeah, just make sure you have someone up there with a Reinhardt.
Yeah.
I screwed that one up once.
yeah.
I'm not doing that one again.
Also, the Orisa and soldier should be coordinating where they're going to be shooting. So the Orisa / soldier should be calling focus targets. Basically, because both of their combined damage is actually pretty good together. They would, I think their DPS together is around like 200 DPS if they focus together, and then you add in the Mercy damage boost. So yeah, that's a lot. Where I can't remember exactly. I think it's more towards the 400 level, and then the Mercy damage boost, and that's how we burn down the shield so fast. So do we want to go into offensive dive real quick? So everyone just jump off the cliff, or I'll just shoot myself. Yeah, offensive dive.
On this comp.
Yep. So basically, Andre just switches to a Winston. So the offensive version for this comp basically is you'll be running a dive with a mobile shield. Basically, and this is what's funny, the shield of Orisa's jumps in with a dive, and that's the big part about her. Everything else is the same. You just need your frontline people to be more focused on to diving. I like running Diva on this as well, and kind of going with a triple tank, and then maybe throwing in a Moira or a Lucio up front as well. So we want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. So same thing again. We will basically set up front line and back line.
Hello there.
And we want to get them to dive us. So we're actually going to go up top like we would if we were a death ball. And the Orisa would set up a shield.
For your safety.
And then that would allow the Winston to get into a position where he could dive with the Diva. He would call dive. Orisa would throw her shield. And then the Winston has an 800 hit point shield. Is it 800, Garrett? Just double checking.
900.
900 hit point barrier with the 600 hit point barrier. So you'd be having a 1500 hit point barrier there to help you out and to dive in between. And then we would basically be setting up back here. And this is kind of the best of both worlds with dive and deathball, is you get the firepower of this back line with the dive of the front line, and basically getting an extra shield up front. So it's really shield heavy with the dive, and that's a good part. And if they dive you back, we throw down a shield next to us, and we start fragging out, and then we basically have our dive come back to us. And yeah, it's a lot of it's a lot of, the best way to explain it is kind of like nunchucks. Both side will do their own thing, but they can still work together and come together when needed.
So I'd just like to stress this point again because it's very important. Every time you use a shield character in a comp, it's always how you mitigate pressure. It always comes back to that previous concept of pressure.
Yeah. And personally, we like this comp because we've actually done pretty well with this comp. We played this comp against the New York University's TCS team, which is pretty funny.
I think it was just a collegiate team. I don't think it was their official team, but
Well, they had a bunch of players on their team that they couldn't put on their roster.
I think it was just mixed.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, we have played this in a
Relatively.
competitive setting,
Yeah, and it's
and it's worked very well.
Yeah. The only thing that runs into is when people don't understand what the Orisa's doing, and the soldier is not working with the Orisa. That's when the comp starts
Yeah.
degrading.
It's really a comp based around teamwork and knowing where you're supposed to fit into the teamwork.
Yeah.
It has a very specific formation to it.
It's not like you can just say, okay, everyone's diving.
Yeah.
No, it's like, okay, our dive is going to go in, we're going to sit in the back line. And, you know, there's a lot of moving components.
Yeah.
They're pretty simple, but everyone has to know
What they're doing.
explicitly.
Yeah. Do we want to go through? There's 2 more comps left. I don't know if we want to go through one of them or not. The El Presidente comp and the pork roast comp.
I feel like a lot of people kind of know how to play El Presidente already.
For those that don't
We
know,
can-
El
we can-
Presidente is the
we-
Bastion comp, where you just basically throw a
Let's-
Bastion into your comp on
Yeah,
defense or
go
offense.
switch to Bastion.
Yeah, I can.
Andre, go switch to Reinhardt. I'll stay as Orisa.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a thing
It's
that people
pretty
run a
simple.
lot. We'll just add in some commentary of suggestions that we have on what to do technically. But yeah, you can run the Bastion in the 2 Lanterns comp as well, just because you can switch him in either for the soldier, which is possible, or you can just add him into the back with the soldier.
Because we already have the Orisa and the Reinhardt or Winston
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
So, this comp, you put shields around Bastion. There's really not much to it.
And you keep him alive. On defense and
Good.
offense, you want to alternate where the Bastion's going to be. So if you are on defense, what you want to do is you want to like maybe set up the Bastion right here. So when they're on the point, you shoot. And then when they go to re-engage, what you want to do is you want to be in a different position. So what you'll do is you'll jump over here and sit here, because the biggest counter to Bastion is knowing where he's going to be, similar to Orisa's shield. So what will happen is people will run in, Bastion will kill everyone, they'll back out and they'll go, okay, now we know the Bastion's in this corner, we'll just go and dive the Bastion there. So the Bastion goes all the way over. Oops.
What just happened?
It ran out of time. We were in there for too long. I'll set it back up. So basically, you would dive, and the Bastion wouldn't be there, and would be in a different spot. So
Yeah, it's protect the president.
Yeah.
Pretty common comp. It's a really easy comp to run in a solo queue, or maybe even duo queue
yeah,
if you can get your team to kind of revolve around it. But
Right. It forces cooperation in the scrappy matchmaking situations, both from your team and the enemy team. Thing is, the cooperation is easier for your team to achieve than the enemy, so a lot of the times teams crumble under that pressure.
I'm gonna go to
You
Li
can't
Jing.
take out the president without coordination.
Yeah, I'm gonna go into Li Jing Tower because I think we've kind of covered the El Presidente comp pretty well. Just protect the president, pretty much.
So
It's actually being used competitively on Junkertown at the moment. So a lot of people on Junkertown's using it. Using the El
Science
Presidente
will
comp.
reveal the truth.
all right,
Pork roast
So-
comp?
it's really simple. Anyone watching this who knows how taboo a 3 DPS comp is, you're gonna look at this and go, that is totally not right. But
My god.
Unforgivable sin.
yeah, so basically it really revolves around one healer, one tank, one really primary tank that can have a lot of sustain, and Diva has a lot of sustain because she has that second life with her mech, and then 4 DPS characters who are very mobile. And when you go back to communication, it's really about the 4 DPS characters just completely neglecting the front line, just leaving the Diva out to dry along with the healer, and just going right into their backline and starting to call targets. And with that much DPS in their backline, they will get melted down very fast. However, they also have to coordinate very well and get them very fast. So it's really a time-sensitive process, or versus skill-sensitive process. Because if the other team is very skilled, they can pick off those low-health characters really fast. But if they can't hit you and you have a very mobile comp, then you get a little bit more time to do that damage.
I also like running the Sombra on this just because it gets that little more healing to it. It's not too big, but it's still relevant. So,
And that whole time, while the DPS are in their backline, you have the Diva putting a lot of pressure on their front line. Because Diva is a very... Diva can do a lot of damage. And you can't just neglect the Diva. And she's a really big target.
yeah.
So that's what it revolves around. Basically, you have Diva as a distraction while the backline goes ham. It is very taboo. But,
And counterable,
yes.
mostly by death falling.
But if you have a lot of very skilled players on your team, it can work very well.
The meme strats.
We've done it a couple times, and it's had, like, interesting results.
We've won.
Yeah.
It worked.
There was one where we honestly shouldn't have gone anywhere, and we almost pushed full with Route 66, and the other team was like, what the heck?
I will say, never play this on defense. Never play it on defense. It is a pure attack-based strategy.
You have
And-
0 point presence.
Yeah,
Completely unfragging.
because it's all about getting in their backline, and if they're attacking you, their backline is where you are. So it doesn't really work. But, you know, things like a capture point like we're on now, or is this control point? I think it's this control point. It works very well because it's based entirely off attack. And the enemy team has to go and get onto the point, and that's when you can start planning your engage. Because you have that small frame where you can allow them to capture some of it. So play it on attack.
Yeah. I would almost want to run like an offensive, very aggressive Moira for poke.
Then that could be a healer. If you wanted to add more damage and more sustain, you could play her as a primary healer, secondary offense.
Yeah. Or as a second healer if you want to actually go with a second healer, and then you have one
Yeah, like
tank
instead
and
of
3
the,
DPS.
Yeah, because one thing you can also do is you can have an off healer, and I'm talking very, very abstract healing, such as something like a soldier, where you have that healing field, the biotic field.
Or Sombra as well.
Yeah, so having that secondary in there is always good, but it's still, you're still primary DPS. Like, you are pure DPS. But if you have that extra ability to heal, that's also good.
Do you want to talk about triple tank?
Sure.
Because triple
Yeah.
tank's making a bit of a comeback with Moira.
Yeah. So Moira has
Science
two
will
things going with
reveal
her, and
the
this is why I've mentioned with Dive and her is you can play her with a triple tank or you can play her with a dive. Basically with the dive you're gonna want to be playing a little more aggressively with the orbs, and you throw in a damage orb and then you dive in with your team and you basically just do a bunch of damage. With a triple tank, because Moira has this thing where she can heal multiple people at once with her left click, you can just basically, if all of your tanks are around each other, you can just go whoosh and just mass heal them all and then get your ultimate pretty fast and win for days. Okay. So...
Yeah, I mean, that basically sums it up, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think we'll definitely come back and try to get a 6-stack, or at least a 6-stack, maybe even a 12-stack, and go through some of these things. And what we might do is, I don't know. We'll see. It could be interesting. I don't know how we're gonna get 12 people, but that'd be cool.
And then add it down.
You could.
Yeah, I would really like if we were able to actually do a strat chat over a scrim.
Yeah, I mean.
Anything.
No, you could run a scrim and a strategy video at the same time. Just kind of pause it.
Yeah. Anything before we start going into questions, which I imagine we only have one question.
Is that what are we doing? And am I asking it?
No, I have the question.
Oh, great. Yeah, shoot.
Okay. Let me see if we have any questions from chat. No one's seen it. Yay, no one's watching.
See, that's what I was most surprised about. I was wondering who.
We can say whatever we want.
You are asking a question. Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to find it.
I'm here.
Okay. We have a question from Jake from the Discord server. Heedlegoth OX. I am sorry if I've mispronounced. I'll call you Heed, just for fun. Kind of like Kaz. Shout out to Kaz. Okay, so his question was, one from off my top of my head is how to implement Widowmaker into decent team comps and how to use her with the teams. I'd argue that she is my best hero mechanically, and I'm sure David would agree. That'd be Captain Star, but it seems like most team comps don't really utilize her as much as they could. Me and David had a discussion where if the Widow communicates correctly, she can be very useful, but I'd like a more professional opinion on what comp she can be implemented into and how to effectively communicate with your team when playing her. So, basically, how could you implement a Widowmaker into a team comp?
So I can touch on this.
Let's get the memes aside.
I'm not memeing right now.
Oh, I was just gonna say Widowmaker's never the answer. Memes aside.
Okay, so if you're good at Widowmaker, she can have a lot of value. The problem is when you're playing with very skilled people, when you're playing against teams that really communicate, she can be very easily countered. And she doesn't give the team a lot of value. She herself has a lot of value, and her ult gives herself a lot of value, but it's not a damage ult. It really doesn't do a lot for the team, because we can predict where all the other team people are going to be. It's really just helping herself. And so all of her value is tied up in the fact that she does damage and she can get picks.
Mm-hmm.
So if the other team says, oh, they have a Widow, let's instead of going mid and just exposing ourselves right to that Widowmaker, let's just like take the back roads and just, instead of contesting that Widow on the high ground, let's just do the 5v6 on the low ground where the Widow can't get to us.
Yeah.
Right, if the team can play Widow's lines of sight, which that is the thing, is that a A good Widow forces people to play out of the line of sight as far as the pressure goes. But if you're not executing on Widow, the other team doesn't necessarily need to respect that. They may just throw up a couple shields and then throw some Helix rockets your way and you might be down. So unless you can actually earn that respect on Widow, the other team may not even play differently with you out there and you might just get punished. So Widow doesn't inherently add that value to her team. She needs to actually earn that value for the team by getting picked.
So it's very skill based, and if you are very good at Widow, if you have all the positionings down, how to deal with, you know, the other team, how to make them position, she can be a very useful character. And quite frankly, if you're stupidly good at her, you can really carry the whole game. But it is very dependent. It is a very big risk.
I think the other part of it that we haven't mentioned yet is how the rest of the team plays around a Widow, because a lot of times people kind of think, oh yeah, you just sort of engage and just let the Widow do her thing, or you just wait for the Widow to get a pick and then engage.
Because when you're on that team, every time you're engaging and you have a Widow on your team, it is a 5v6. Not going to be in that team fight. And
right, she doesn't provide any
hurts.
point presence. There are a number of things she doesn't do, but if she provides that pressure, then she does have that. But what becomes important though is that the team may need to protect the Widow. If the Widow has earned that position, then she will be dived. But then as far as building a team comp around your Widow, you generally want to have tanks that can help your Widow. So if you're running a Reinhardt and you're running a Roadhog, for example, if a Genji and a Winston dive your Widow, you can't do anything about it. Your Widow's left to fend for herself. But if you're running a Diva's definitely the best example. And actually even the Roadhog if he's close enough. Then when the enemy team goes to dive that Widow, what you do is you make that incredibly expensive to the enemy team. If they don't send a lot of resources that way, anything they send will get killed because your team just peels for the Widow. Just like you'd peel for any support. And then that punishment allows you to really kind of rub the dirt in and having that better Widow on your team, and that they can't even get to her even when they pick to counter because your entire team just simply converges when they do.
Yeah.
You use her as bait and then you catch the dive.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to mention, so we did cover this, of her value really is in her kill potential. She has the highest kill potential in the game. If you had godlike accuracy and you could be shooting everyone at once, you can get a team kill pretty fast if you were really, really good. So
And that's why Taimu has a ton of value. That's why Taimu can Widow.
Recently, with the Overwatch League preseason, there's been a lot of Widow being seen. I think mainly because of how Korea used her, where they basically used her to create positioning, which is a way you can use her. Basically the idea is, and if I pretend you guys are the enemy team and I'm attacking, if I take up this position and I have a godlike aim, anyone here is going to die. And what I do is I create pressure systematically. And the problem is yeah, she's really good at the pro level, but the thing is she's really good because those people have such great aim that they create this almost absolute pressure where the team can't actually take those engagements. So that's where a lot of it lies, and so you'll like, once the point's taken, then you'll see like her taking a position like maybe here, and it would just be creating that pressure is what those pros are doing, and putting the enemy into a position they don't want to be in order to get advantage out of it. We did cover with her as a distraction. You can do that as well. Very doable. Basically because she has high skill potential, she is a high threat depending on if the player's actually good or not. And that's a lot of the things, is if you can hit shots, yeah, she's awesome. If you can't hit shots, then it's not worth playing her.
And I want to emphasize again, ult economy and Overwatch is a huge thing. And her ult, I mean, it doesn't provide for the team. You are playing here entirely for her pressure that she creates.
Can't combo with anything. Can't set up anything. You just kill more stuff.
Yeah. I do want to cover as well is a lot of the reasons why the pros are playing her a lot more is because of her hook cooldown is at 8 seconds, and it allows her to leave from danger pretty fast. That in Mercy can res her if she dies. And so that's a lot of what happens is the Widow can get picked, and then all of that potential is just gone. And so having the Mercy to res her back up, and usually the Widowmaker is in cover, so the Mercy can actually just res for free on that. So that's the thing as well.
And with that hook, it makes it easier to do the bait and switch, where Widow hooks away, and then Diva flies in. And then those heroes that thought they were diving a Widow are now diving a Diva.
Yep.
Which, frankly, doesn't make any sense. So, you change the situation pretty fast.
Personally, when it comes to a sniper-type comp, I am more interested in the Hanzo. Now, hear me out. I've been doing a lot of, like, research into, like, how Hanzo works and different ways you can use her. And pretty much bottom line, I'm just gonna throw this out there. How would you think a Zenyatta player would play a Hanzo? And that's really the idea that I have with her. Have you guys seen Zenyatta players, pro Zenyatta players?
Like Boombox?
Yeah, Boombox.
A little bit.
A lot of the things.
The right-click life.
Yeah, with Zenyatta's is you will, and I'll quickly die and switch real quick. Is they will peek targets, and so I'll go over this with Zenyatta real quick and then switch over to Hanzo to show. And this is why I would prefer the Hanzo a lot more, is because he also gives a little more utility based off of his pressure he creates and how the projectiles work. So a lot of Zenyatta players will hold right click and then peek the corner and then get an instant kill. And so that's why I say that I would like to see how a Hanzo will play, well, how a Zenyatta player would play Hanzo. And it's mainly because of a thing that was added to him a while ago that not a lot of people have kind of looked into. And it's because of his ability to jump shot. So you can charge up a shot, climb, boom, shoot, back down. Climb, shoot, back down. Climb, shoot, back down. And it's a lot more faster and consistent than a Zenyatta orb throw. And you can do this and constantly be behind cover, so the pressure that's exerted onto you is very brief. And you can just go and just peek this, and you can adjust. You can have Widowmaker's ult a lot more consistently, and you can use it to figure out where you need to land your shots. And then you...
But also, with that, if we're talking about pressure, because you're dealing with 2 dimensions, the pressure does drop over those edges.
Yes.
Those climbs.
However, it is worth noting, though, you do have an inherent weakness to snipers, just in that when you're using any sort of in-air move to dodge, then that generally sets your trajectory on a more or less fixed path.
Mm-hmm.
And that's snipers' favorite times to get headshots a lot of the time, because all of a sudden you can't strafe like you could on the ground. You can't react as quickly in the air. You just sort of float, and that allows them to line up the shot even though you're moving.
That's why I'm wall climbing, is because on that descending, you're not exposed to pressure. You're up, now you're gone. Yep, gone.
Right.
Up, gone. Up, gone. So
and not
it's
only that, but because you're climbing that wall, you know, typically pressure is horizontal. When you start going vertical, the pressure drops off. So when he's climbing that wall, he's going to a state of lower pressure, technically.
Yeah. And then you just like move around and just change up what you're doing. So you're not going to be shot a lot of the times, and you can take these shots. That's why I prefer the Hanzo more. But a lot of pros are good at hit scan characters and technically can hit those more. There will be a day, though, that I think they're going to move over to a Hanzo. personally. Just because they'll start being able to hit shots a lot better. Because that's why it's taken so long for the Widowmaker to come back in, is because now pros are just, they've had a lot of time. Same thing with Tracer, is they've had enough time that now they're actually able to play them a lot better than they could originally. So that's a lot of the things there. Anything for you guys to add before we do a closing? I'll check and make sure that we have covered everything.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
But you know, we'll come back and we'll cover this more in detail
Yeah.
with more
So,
people.
so for next week's video, I am going to be out of town. Garrett, aren't you leaving next week? Next weekend?
I'm leaving on the Monday
Oh, okay.
after finals. So yeah.
And you're gonna be out of touch. So this might be the last one with all of us. I might do some ones during Christmas break to cover that.
I've got you.
But yeah, I'll see if I can get one done earlier, maybe Friday of this upcoming week. See if we can do that. Yeah, everyone keep a lookout on that, and I think it's time to sign off. So,
All right.
everyone, thanks for watching. We're going to be stopping recording. So, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, whatever. Reply. Ask us questions. Keep in touch. This is the third one of Strat Chat. So, if you guys want to see some of our older stuff, I think I might make a playlist because this is the third one. Yeah. Anything you guys want to say before we head off?
No,
Nope.
I think this one ran a little long, but
Yeah. Okay.
we'll try to fix that later.
Actually, I got one thing.
Okay.
Have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No,
Nope.
we don't need to hear
Stop
that.
recording. Bye. See ya.